The massive Zenith warship emerged from hyperspace like a blade cutting through black silk, its crystalline surface refracting starlight in ways that made it seem alive. Commander Rhea Sullivan stood at the United Earth Defense Force Headquarters observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic projection of the vessel. 20 years of military service hadn't prepared her for this moment. "They've broadcast their message to every communication device on Earth," reported James Harrison, her strategic advisor, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of holographic displays. "Standard surrender demand, just like the intelligence reports from other worlds showed." The message played across every screen in the command center: "To the inhabitants of Earth, the Zenith Empire claims your world. You have 24 standard hours to submit. Resistance will result in extinction. This is not a negotiation." Rhea's fingers traced the silver streaks in her otherwise black hair, a habit she'd developed during countless strategic meetings. "How many civilizations have they conquered, James?" 37 confirmed, Commander. All technologically advanced. All surrendered within the 24-hour window. He paused, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. None ever fought back. The command center hummed with nervous energy as military personnel from every nation monitored their stations. The Zenith had been methodically expanding their empire for millennia, their process perfectly refined. They arrived, demanded surrender, and worlds capitulated. Their technology was so advanced that resistance seemed futile. "Get me a direct channel to their command ship," Rhea ordered, straightening her uniform. The room fell silent as the main screen flickered to life, revealing their first clear view of a Zenith commander. The alien's form was both beautiful and terrifying, a being of crystalline structure and flowing energy, more like a work of art than a living creature. Its voice resonated with harmonic overtones as it spoke. "I am High Commander Nexus. You have received our terms. Your submission is expected within the designated timeframe." Rhea stepped forward, her voice steady. "This is Commander Rhea Sullivan of Earth. We've received your terms, and we have a response." She took a deep breath, knowing her next words would echo through human history, assuming humanity survived what was to come. "No." The crystalline being's surface rippled with what might have been confusion. "Your response is invalid. Surrender is the only logical choice. Our empire has never failed to acquire a targeted world." "Then perhaps it's time for something new," Rhea replied, allowing a slight smile to cross her face. "You see, we humans have a rather complicated relationship with the word impossible." The Zenith commander's form pulsed with energy. "Your species' psychological profile indicates high intelligence. This makes your choice incomprehensible. Explain your reasoning." James stepped forward to stand beside Rhea. "Commander Nexus, has your empire ever encountered a species that developed over 1,000 different martial arts just to fight itself? Or one that climbs mountains for fun? We write stories about defeating impossible odds. We make games about surviving apocalypses. We dream about overcoming invincible enemies. These activities are illogical," Nexus responded. "They serve no evolutionary purpose." "That's exactly why you'll never understand us," Rhea said. "Humanity doesn't just survive, we turn survival into an art form. We don't just resist, we learn to thrive in resistance. Your empire has never failed to conquer a world because you've never met a species that spends its spare time practicing how to be unconquerable." The Zenith commander was silent for several long moments, its crystalline surface swirling with complex patterns. When it spoke again, there was something new in its harmonic voice, something that might have been uncertainty. "You understand that resistance will bring the full might of the Zenith Empire against your world?" Rhea nodded. "And you should understand that humanity has spent its entire existence preparing for this moment, even though we never knew you existed. Every war we fought, every story we told, every impossible challenge we overcame, it was all practice for today." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the command center in tense silence. James turned to Rhea, concern evident in his eyes. "They'll attack within hours. Their forces are unlike anything we've ever faced." "Good," Rhea replied, turning to address the room. "Send word to every defense force on Earth. Tell them humanity just did something unprecedented, we said no to the undefeatable enemy. And now we're going to show the galaxy why the word impossible is a human invention." As alarm sirens began to sound across the planet, Rhea watched the Zenith warship on the main screen. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Invincible Empire was about to learn that some species don't break under pressure, they become diamonds. Within hours of Earth's defiance, the skies transformed into a battlefield unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. The Zenith Empire's crystalline ships filled the atmosphere like a shimmering curtain of stars, their surfaces rippling with barely contained energy. But Earth was ready. Initial analysis of their attack patterns shows something interesting, Lieutenant Raj Patel announced from his station in the underground command center. His fingers danced across holographic displays as he compiled data from defense stations worldwide. They're following textbook invasion protocols, the same ones they've used for millennia. Commander Rhea Sullivan leaned over his shoulder, studying the patterns. Because they've never needed to adapt, she realized, a spark of hope igniting in her chest. Every civilization they've faced surrendered before they needed to modify their tactics. James Harrison nodded, pulling up historical battle data on his tablet. They're perfectly evolved predators who've never had to evolve. And you know what happens to perfect predators when they face something new? They break, Rhea finished, a plan forming in her mind. "Lieutenant Patel, get me a line to all Earth Defense Forces. It's time to show the Zenith Empire why adaptation is humanity's greatest weapon." The first wave of Zenith attacks came as expected, precise, overwhelming strikes at military installations and defense systems. But humanity had spent the precious hours of preparation well. As crystalline ships descended toward their targets, they found empty bases and automated defenses. The real forces had moved underground, into the seas, and into civilian areas, using humanity's oldest tactical advantage, home field knowledge. "They're scanning for our primary defense grid," Raj reported, monitoring the enemy's movements. "They don't realize we've distributed it across thousands of smaller networks." "Status of Operation Chameleon?" Rhea asked, watching as Zenith forces continued to target obvious military installations. "Working perfectly," James replied with a slight smile. "Our quantum interference networks are making every major weapons platform look like a civilian structure, and every civilian structure like a potential threat. They can't distinguish valid targets anymore." The Zenith's response came swiftly. A new transmission cut through Earth's communications, High Commander Nexus's harmonics tinged with what could only be described as frustration. "Your tactics are inefficient and chaotic. You cannot hope to prevail through such disorder." Rhea took the call in her private command room, facing the crystalline being with quiet confidence. "That's because you're trying to understand human warfare through Zenith logic. How many of your conquered worlds fought with unified, organized armies? All advanced civilizations develop standardized military protocols," Nexus responded. "It is the most efficient method of warfare. And that's why you're losing ships right now," Rhea said, pulling up battle footage. "Because humans never standardized. We fight as guerrillas in the jungles, as nomads in the deserts, as hackers in cyberspace. Every culture on Earth developed its own way of fighting, and we've learned to use them all together." As if to emphasize her point, reports began flooding in from around the globe. In the Amazon, indigenous warriors led Zenith ground forces into deadly natural traps. In the Arctic, submarines emerged from under ice sheets to attack crystalline ships from impossible angles. In cities, civilian hackers launched cyber attacks that confused Zenith targeting systems. "Your species fights without honor," Nexus declared, its surface churning with agitation. These are not the tactics of a civilized race. Honor? Rhea laughed softly. We're fighting for survival. The only honor that matters is keeping our people alive. You've spent millennia perfecting one way of fighting. We've spent millennia learning to fight in every way possible. The battle continued to escalate, but with each passing hour, the mighty Zenith war machine showed signs of strain. Their perfect formations began to break as they chased phantom targets. Their standardized attacks faltered against Earth's ever-changing defenses. In the command center, James watched the tactical displays with growing optimism. They're starting to make mistakes. Their responses are getting slower, more uncertain. Because for the first time in their history, they're facing an enemy that doesn't play by their rules, Rhea observed. Every time they adapt to one of our tactics, we switch to another. They're learning what every would-be conqueror of Earth has learned: humans don't fight fair, we fight to win. As the first day of battle drew to a close, the Zenith Empire had lost more ships than in their last 1,000 years of conquest combined. But Rhea knew this was just the beginning. In her private moments, she pulled up an old quote that had been circulating among Earth's defenders: "The perfect warrior shatters against the imperfect battle." "Lieutenant Patel," she called out, returning to the command center. "Begin Phase 2. Let's show them what happens when humanity stops reacting and starts attacking." The young officer grinned as he relayed the orders. Across the planet, Earth's forces prepared to launch their first coordinated offensive against the supposedly invincible Empire. The real test of humanity's unconquerable spirit was about to begin. Deep within the Zenith Command ship, High Commander Nexus experienced an unfamiliar sensation: doubt. The crystalline being's surface rippled with conflicting energy patterns as it reviewed the battle data from the first 48 hours of the Earth campaign. "Display human resistance patterns," Nexus commanded. The ship's living walls illuminated with countless streams of information, showing thousands of different combat techniques, strategies, and adaptations. "Analyze. Why do they continue fighting when our simulations show their defeat is mathematically certain?" Meanwhile, in Earth's underground command center, Commander Rhea Sullivan was making a breakthrough. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a detailed scan of a damaged Zenith vessel. "Their crystalline structure, it's not just their technology, it's them. They don't just think like machines, they are living quantum computers." James Harrison studied the data, his eyes widening. "That's their strength. And their weakness," Rhea finished. "They can't comprehend anything that doesn't follow logical patterns. And humans? We're the most illogical species in the galaxy," Raj Patel chimed in, a grin spreading across his face. The revelation sparked a new strategy. Earth's forces began implementing what they called Operation Chaos Theory, deliberate randomization of their tactics. Military units would advance, then retreat without apparent reason. Defense systems would power down in the middle of battle, only to reactivate in unexpected locations. The Zenith forces began experiencing cascading failures in their prediction algorithms. Their perfect formation started breaking apart as human forces defied every statistical model and combat projection. "They're trying to understand us through pure logic," Rhea explained to the United Earth Defense Council. "But human courage, sacrifice, and determination can't be quantified. We need to push that advantage." A new transmission from the Zenith Command ship interrupted the meeting. High Commander Nexus's form appeared more unstable than ever, its crystalline surface fracturing and reforming rapidly. "Your species defies comprehension," Nexus stated, harmonic tones discordant. "We have analyzed your combat data 10 million times. Your actions contradict all rational battlefield philosophy. Explain." Rhea stood before the transmission, calm and confident. "You want to understand why we fight like this? Show me your recreation of the Battle of Thermopylae." The Zenith commander complied, displaying a perfect tactical simulation of the ancient battle. 300 warriors against an overwhelming force. The mathematical outcome was certain. Their resistance was illogical. Yet they fought, Rhea said softly. Just like the defenders of Stalingrad, the soldiers at Dunkirk, the resistance fighters in countless wars. Humanity's greatest victories have always defied logic. But why? Nexus demanded, its voice carrying an edge of desperation. Why continue when defeat is certain? Because we don't believe in certain defeat, James stepped forward. Every human culture has stories of impossible victories. We tell our children tales of underdogs who triumph against overwhelming odds. We've spent our entire history preparing for moments exactly like this. The transmission suddenly cut off as the Zenith ships began a new formation. But something was different, their movements were hesitant, uncertain. The perfect synchronization that had made them unstoppable was beginning to fray. They're trying to adapt, Raj observed, monitoring the enemy movements. But they can't adapt fast enough because they don't understand what they're adapting to. Rhea watched the tactical displays with growing confidence. They've spent millennia becoming the perfect invasion force, but they've never faced a species that thrives on imperfection. Every other civilization they encountered tried to match their precision, their logic. And we're showing them the power of controlled chaos, James finished. The next wave of Earth's defense involved tactics that would have seemed insane to any military strategist. Civilian boats charged Zenith warships while broadcasting music. Fighter pilots engaged in maneuvers that violated their own training protocols. Resistance cells launched attacks that prioritized confusion over damage. In the Zenith command ship, Nexus watched as its perfect invasion force began to crumble in the face of humanity's psychological warfare. The crystalline being accessed its vast database of conquered civilizations, searching for any parallel to Earth's resistance. There was none. Query, Nexus announced to its command staff. How does one defeat an enemy that draws strength from the very concept of defeat? The question hung unanswered in the crystalline chamber, while below, humanity prepared to show the Zenith Empire exactly why they had never should have threatened a species that turned survival itself into an art form. The capture of a Zenith scout ship marked the turning point in humanity's resistance. The crystalline vessel lay in a specialized containment chamber beneath the Rocky Mountains, its surface pulsing with weakening energy as Lieutenant Raj Patel and a team of Earth's brightest scientists studied its quantum architecture. It's not just a ship, Raj reported to Commander Sullivan, his voice filled with excitement. It's a node in their collective consciousness. Every Zenith vessel is connected through quantum entanglement. They share a single strategic mind. Which is why they've always been unbeatable, Rhea mused, watching the ship's crystalline surface shimmer. Perfect coordination, perfect unity. And perfect vulnerability, James Harrison added, understanding dawning in his eyes. They can't conceive of individual action because they've never been individuals. Every conquest, every battle, they've always acted as a single entity. The implications were staggering. Humanity's seemingly chaotic resistance hadn't just been confusing the Zenith, it had been threatening the very foundation of their collective consciousness. Every unpredictable human action created quantum disturbances in their network. In orbit, the Zenith fleet was experiencing unprecedented disruption. High Commander Nexus struggled to maintain coherence as conflicting data streams flooded the collective consciousness. The humans weren't just refusing to follow tactical logic, they were actively embracing tactical insanity. Another transmission from the Zenith command ship, Raj announced. The main screen flickered to life, showing Nexus's form more fragmented than ever. Your species, the Zenith commander's harmonics wavered, is introducing errors into our collective. Our unity is facing discontinuity. This has never occurred in our history. Rhea stepped forward, her expression firm but compassionate. Because you've never encountered true diversity before. Humanity isn't a single consciousness, we're billions of individual minds, each capable of independent thought and action. Our strength isn't in our unity, it's in our differences. Impossible, Nexus responded, but the harmonics of its voice carried a new emotion, fear. A species cannot survive without perfect coordination. The chaos would destroy them. Watch us, Rhea challenged. She nodded to Raj, who initiated a global broadcast. Across every continent, humans began implementing Operation Babel, a strategy that deliberately highlighted the diversity of Earth's resistance. In Indonesia, local fishermen used traditional boats to deploy electromagnetic pulse devices. In the Andes, indigenous tribes guided resistance fighters through mountain passes that confused zenith sensors. In urban centers worldwide, street artists created massive optical illusions that disrupted the crystalline ship's navigation systems. The Zenith collective consciousness began experiencing cascading failures. Their perfectly coordinated fleet started showing signs of individual behavior, something that hadn't happened in millions of years of their existence. Their ships are breaking formation, James reported, watching the tactical displays. Some are acting independently, others are completely paralyzed. The collective is fragmenting. In the containment chamber, the captured Zenith Scout ship's surface began displaying new patterns. Raj's instruments detected quantum fluctuations that defied their understanding of physics. "Commander," Raj called out urgently. "The ship, it's trying to communicate. Not as part of the collective, but as an individual entity." The scout ship's crystalline surface formed into a rough approximation of a human face. Its voice, when it came, was different from the harmonic tones of the collective, it was singular, unique. "I am." The ship struggled with concepts it had never needed before. "I am one. Not all. How do you survive being separate?" Rhea approached the containment field, her voice gentle. "We survive because our differences make us stronger. Every unique perspective, every individual decision, they all contribute to our ability to adapt and grow." The revelation spread through the fragmenting Zenith collective like a shockwave. Ships began experiencing individual awareness for the first time in their species' history. The perfect invasion force was transforming into something unprecedented, a collection of independent minds. High Commander Nexus's next transmission showed its form almost completely fragmented. What have you done to us?" "We haven't done anything to you," Rhea responded. "We've simply shown you what you've been missing. The question is, what will you do with this new understanding?" As the fourth day of Earth's resistance drew to a close, humanity watched as the Invincible Zenith Armada faced its greatest challenge yet, the dawn of individual consciousness. The battle for Earth had become something far more profound, a revolution in the very nature of their would-be conquerors. The dawn of the fifth day brought a sight unprecedented in human history. The mighty Zenith fleet, once a perfect crystalline lattice across Earth's sky, had transformed into a scattered array of independently moving vessels. Each ship now pulsed with its own unique energy signature, like stars learning to shine with their own light. In the underground command center, Commander Rhea Sullivan watched the transformation with a mixture of awe and cautious optimism. The tactical displays showed hundreds of Zenith ships breaking away from their original attack formations, some approaching Earth with what appeared to be curiosity rather than hostility. "They're experiencing individuality for the first time," James Harrison observed, studying the readings. "Each ship is developing its own patterns, its own thoughts." High Commander Nexus's final transmission came not as a unified broadcast, but as a personal communication to Rhea. The once perfect crystalline being now appeared as a shifting mosaic of fragments, each piece glowing with distinct purpose. "We have existed for millions of years," Nexus began, its voice no longer carrying the harmonic overtones of the collective. "We conquered thousands of worlds, absorbed countless civilizations into our empire. Yet none of them taught us what humanity has shown us in mere days." "And what is that?" Rhea asked, though she already knew the answer. "That perfection is a prison," Nexus replied. "Our unity, our perfect coordination, it was stagnation disguised as strength. We conquered other worlds not because we were superior, but because we were incapable of change. Lieutenant Raj Patel's instruments detected massive energy fluctuations throughout the Zenith fleet. Commander, their ships are reconfiguring themselves. The quantum signatures are completely different from anything we've seen before. The Zenith vessels began to change shape, their crystalline surfaces flowing like liquid metal. What had once been identical warships were becoming unique forms, each reflecting the emerging consciousness within. Your resistance, Nexus continued, showed us something we had forgotten, the power of choice. Every human who chose to fight despite impossible odds, every unique strategy that defied our predictions, they were expressions of individual will. Something we had sacrificed in our pursuit of perfection. In orbit, several Zenith ships approached Earth's defense platforms, not to attack, but to initiate communication. Each ship now communicated differently, asking questions about human culture, history, and the nature of individual existence. The captured scout ship is requesting permission to remain on Earth, Raj reported, surprised. It wants to learn about humanity. Rhea turned back to Nexus's transmission. What happens now? What becomes of the Zenith Empire? The Empire as we knew it ceased to exist the moment we encountered humanity, Nexus replied. We cannot return to what we were. The concept of individual consciousness has spread through our entire species. Each ship, each being must now choose its own path. The transformation of the Zenith Force had implications beyond Earth. Across the galaxy, their conquered worlds received transmissions not of surrender demands, but of liberation. The perfect empire was dissolving, replaced by something new, a civilization learning to embrace diversity and change. We request, Nexus said, its form still shifting, to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. Not as conquerors, but as students. Your species has mastered something we never understood, the strength that comes from being uniquely oneself. In the command center, James smiled. From invincible empire to humble learners. I don't think any military strategist in history ever predicted this outcome. Because it wasn't a military victory, Rhea replied, watching as more Zenith ships requested permission to study human culture. We didn't defeat them with weapons or tactics. We defeated them by showing them a better way to exist. The day that should have marked humanity's extinction instead became known as the dawn of diversity. The Zenith, once the galaxy's most feared conquerors, began their journey of rediscovery. Each crystalline being learned to develop its own thoughts, its own desires, its own dreams. As Earth's defense forces stood down, Rhea made one final transmission to the transformed Zenith fleet. Welcome, she said, to the wonderful chaos of individual existence. You'll find it's not perfect, but that's exactly what makes it beautiful. The sky above Earth cleared as the Zenith ships dispersed, each choosing its own destination, its own purpose. They left behind not a conquered world, but a lesson that would echo through the cosmos. True strength lies not in perfect unity, but in the courage to embrace imperfection, change, and the boundless potential of individual spirit. Humanity had done more than save itself, it had shown an ancient species how to live again. And in doing so, they had transformed an ending into a beginning, a victory into a renaissance, and an invasion into the greatest revolution the galaxy had ever known.